that happens, no worry. We prefer people to stand on their written if they can. We read through all the testimony, so during your verbal testimony period, we encourage you to expand or add onto what is your written instead of repeating it. There'll be a 2-minute time limit to ensure that we can accommodate everybody, as well as to do question and answers with the members. We ask you keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify and after your testimony is complete. For transparency, the Zoom chat function will only be used to allow you to chat with the technical staff. If used for other than technical issues, you may be removed from the hearing without the ability to rejoin. We want all the conversations to take place like we do in the live hearings on the camera with audio. If you're disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. Please note that the House is not responsible for any bad internet connection, which I'm sure there are plenty of today, on the testifiers' end. In the event of a catastrophic network failure, it may be necessary for us to reschedule the hearing or to move it forward, in which case an appropriate notice will be posted before we do that. And then we we ask everybody, play nice, no cuss words or uncivil behavior or anything. Let's agree to disagree in a not disagreeable way. And I think that's all we have for us as far as the rules of the road go. So that we are going to start off with our first bill, which is House Bill 22. And first up we have to testify is Gary Kam of the Campaign Spending Commission. There he is.
Good morning, Chair and Vice Chair. My name is Gary Kam. I'm with the Campaign Spending Commission. I stand on the Commission's written comments.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Sandy Ma, Common Cause Hawaii. We have testimony with comments. Beppy Shapiro, League of Women Voters. Support. And finally, written only from Fina Bonan in opposition. All the testimony we received on House Bill 22. Anybody on Zoom wishing to testify? If not, members, question of the director. Nope, seeing none, let's move on to the next on the agenda, House Bill 140. First up, Gary Kam, Campaign Spending.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair. Commission stands on its written testimony and support.
Okay, thank you so much. Again, Sandy Ma, Common Cause.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. We stand on our written testimony in support.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here, Sandy. And finally, written only from Fina Bono, an individual in opposition. That's all we have on 140. Anybody else in Zoom out there wishing to testify? Seeing none, members' questions? Seeing none, let's move on to the next bill on the agenda, 141. And again, Mr. Gary Kam.
Again, Chair, the Commission stands on its written testimony and support.
Thank you so much. Let's see, Common Cause.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. We stand on our written testimony and support as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beppy Shapiro, League of Women Voters. And two individuals, one in support, one in opposition. Anybody on Zoom who wishes to testify on 141? If not, members, questions of the testifiers. If not, let's move on to 142, Mr. Gary Kam.
Again, the Commission stands on its testimony and support.
Thank you very much. Common Cause.
Good morning again. We stand on our written testimony and support.
Thank you very much. That's all we have on 142. Members, questions of the testifiers. Seeing none, thank you for being here. Next up, 145. Again, Gary Kam, Campaign Spending Commission.
The Commission stands on its written testimony and support.
Thank you. A Common Cause.
Good morning. We stand on our written testimony and support to fund our underfunded Hawaii Elections Campaign Fund. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We saw that on your written testimony. Appreciate it. I'm sure Gary does too. Okay, we finally have written individual Fina Bonoan in opposition. That's all we have on 145. Anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, questions? Nope. Okay, we're good. Let's move on to the next bill on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention we also have one more individual in support, written only. 157, first up, Cheryl Park, OIP, Office of Information Practices.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. I submitted written testimony on this bill as well as House Bill 841, and I'm just here to answer questions. Thank you.
Understand. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. We have written testimony in support from the Maui County Mayor's Office. Not on Zoom. Okay, that's all we have for 157. Is there anybody in the room wishing to testify on the measure? If not, members' questions of Ms. Park. Okay, thank you so much. We'll move on to the next bill, House Bill 331. First up, Office of Planning.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Danielle Bass from the Office of Planning, standing on our testimony in strong support. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your testimony. David Smith, DLNR.
This is Pua Ayu, and we don't see David in the room, so I'll stand on our testimony.
No problem. Sounds good. I can come from the next cubicle over, right?
Yeah.
Sounds good. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Next up is Henry Curtis, Life of the Land. We don't see him on here. We have numerous written testimony from people all in support in the bill. So given that, is there anybody in the Zoom room who would like to testify in this measure? Seeing none, members, questions for our testifiers? No, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next bill, which is House Bill 365. First up, we have DHS.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kathy Betts, Director for the Department of Human Services. We stand on our written testimony, providing comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate it. We have Dr. Jim Schoen, individual, in opposition. Don't see that. That's all we have to testify on 365. Members, questions of DHS? Okay, if not, let's move on to the next bill. It's House Bill 366. First up is Budget and Finance. We have, let's see, written with comments. We have DHS.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Kathy Betts. We stand on our written testimony in opposition to this measure. Thank you.
We have Pua Ayau, sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right, DLNR.
Aloha. The department stands on its written testimony in opposition, and the chair is also here for questions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, we also have late from Catherine Awakuni Colon, DCCA, in opposition. And then finally, we have late from Phyllis Shimabukuro Geiser, Hawaii Department of Agriculture, also in opposition. Are they there?
Morris Ata on behalf of Phyllis Shimabukuro Geiser. We stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. We appreciate that. That's all we have on 366. Is there anybody in the Zoom room who'd like to testify on the measure? Seeing none, members, questions of the testifiers on this bill? No? Okay. House Bill 376, first up, State Procurement Office.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony in opposition.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, we have Kurt Odagura Daggs, Department of County General Services. Okay, we have opposition, and then Jade Butai, Department of Transportation. And he is in support. DOT is in support. Okay, that's all we have on this bill 376. Is there anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, questions of the testifiers? Seeing none, let's move on to House Bill 516. First up, we're going to have Tai Nohara from DCCA Business Registration Division. Okay, comments. Next up, Brooke Connor, Department of Education.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, members. We stand on our written testimony offering comments.
Thank you so much for your comments, sir. I appreciate you being here. HawaiianHope.org. You guys on there?
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
We submitted written testimony and would like to answer any questions. We have support of the measure with 3 amendments proposed amendments.
Saw those amendments, very, very astute for the committee to consider, so thank you. And, okay, let's see here. Is there anybody? I think we have Lisa Chow, individual in support, who was on Zoom. Is she there?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Okay. You can testify, sorry, and you're up.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Do you mind if I read my testimony? Is that okay?
Yeah, you've got 2 minutes, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Lisa Chow. I am born and raised here in Hawaii. I am a minority woman working in technology in Hawaii. Excuse me. Just give me a moment, I'm sorry. So I've worked in volunteers with nonprofits in Hawaii for the last 5 years. And this bill came to my attention recently, House Bill 516 relating to sustainable electronics management. I'm testifying in support of House Bill 516. As someone who works in technology and IT for nonprofits, I e-wasted quite a bit of computer hardware that could have been refurbished and reused. In fact, there's a big pile of it behind me right now. I knew the equipment could have been fixed and reused, and I didn't have time to do it in my job. And so I did the next best thing and responsible thing, and I e-wasted the hardware. And so, you know, I would take the stuff, load into the van, and as I unloaded these vanfuls of like computers and monitors, keyboards, printers, et cetera, all this stuff, you know, I felt a little sick doing it because it felt like if I didn't e-waste these things, it would have gone into our landfill and it would have poisoned our water supply. That would be horrible. And I also knew that these computers could have been refurbished, but I couldn't do it. I just didn't have the time. I work in nonprofits. There's no time for that. So then I learned that local nonprofit was refurbishing computer equipment and and giving away these computers to children who are at risk and in low income neighborhoods. And I was so happy to have found them. So I no longer e-wasted the equipment, you know, no longer e-wasted the computers, and began donating the computer equipment to the nonprofit refurbisher instead. And I felt like a great weight had been lifted from me because I knew the equipment would have a new life and they would help families who really needed them. And that's the reason why I support House Bill 516, because refurbishing the computers for families in need in Hawaii promotes digital equity, something we don't have right now. And it also reduces our waste and keeps poison out of our water supply and our beautiful land, and makes Hawaii a cleaner and healthier place. So reduce, and also helps reducing the costs for disposal for e-waste. Because I know that a lot of agencies do pay to dispose of their e-waste. And all of these things contribute to taking care of our environment, our Aina, and the people of Hawaii. Thank you, that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Really appreciate you being here. Let's see, that is all we have as far as Zoom testifiers. Again, everybody is in support written except for one, Eduardo Hernandez. Let's see, members, are there any questions of the testifiers? Okay, no, seeing none, thank you for being here on this bill. It's a really good bill. Next up, we're going to go up to House Bill, I believe we are going to go to House Bill 526. First up, State Procurement Office.
Good morning again. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony with comments and recommendations.
Thank you for those comments. Appreciate them. DAGS, Department of Accounting and General Services. Written in opposition, Dr. Jim Schoen, individual, in case he's on. In support, Susan Picola Davis, same thing, written in support. Jay Butai, Department of Transportation.
Good morning, Chair McKelvey, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, Jade Butay for DOT. I apologize for not being on when you called on me on HB 376 as I was trying to multitask, but we stand on our written testimony in support of HB 526. Thank you.
No, thank you for being here, and sorry about that error earlier. Glad you're here, Director. Okay, that's all we have on 526. Anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, questions of the testifiers? Seeing none, we will move on to 531, State Procurement Office.
Good morning. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony.
Okay, thank you so much. We next have up as Phyllis Shumabukura Geyser, Department of Ag.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. The department stands on its written testimony and opposition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. University of Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair. Nick Comerford, Dean of the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. We stand on our testimony in opposition to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then finally, Hawaii Farm Bureau. Oh yeah, that's right. I got a call from them. They're having one of the many entities plagued with internet
Come on,
issues.
Chair.
Oh, you made it.
Yeah.
Hey.
It'll be spotty. We're already clear, so spectrum is down, and so I'm using a hotspot. Good morning, Chair McKelvey, Vice Chair Wahlberger, members of the committee, Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. Hawaii Farm Bureau supports the intent of 531. We do request, Chair, if you're going to move the bill forward, that you amend the definition of produce to include a broader range and more representative of what we grow here. We suggest using the definition in HB 817, which you will be hearing further down in this agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's see. I think that's all we have on this one. Is there anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, questions of the testifiers? Nope. Okay, next up we'll go to House Bill 645, Key Campbell, Hawaii State Ethics Commission.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. The Commission opposes HB 645. Initially, the Commission notes that the bill doesn't amend the gifts law, it only amends the gifts reporting law. So even if the gifts reporting law is amended, it doesn't necessarily that these mean that these gifts are permitted for state officials to accept. Secondly, the reporting law does not currently require the reporting of a single gift under $25. The reporting law only requires reporting once you reach the threshold of $200. And so once you reach $200 from any single source, then you report all the gifts that you've received from that source. So to the extent that this bill is targeted at allowing a handful of meals under $25 to avoid reporting, the gifts reporting law currently doesn't require that. And finally, the Commission opposes HB 645 because it creates confusion as to the reporting requirement. The current law is very clear that if you accept over $200 from any source, you report all the gifts. Under the HB 645, if you accept numerous $20 gifts, it's no longer clear whether or not those meals would need to be reported. Thank you for allowing me to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We have Sandy Ma, Common Cause.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Common Cause provided written comments on HB 645 because we found the bill confusing and we didn't really understand the reason for the bill. As the Ethics Commission just set forth, we needed some clarification as to the bill. So we're going to stand in our written comments regarding our source of confusion for the bill. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. That's all we have to testify, either written or in the Zoom room. Anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, questions of the testifiers?
Chair.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Ethics Commission, please. I thought the catchword in this bill was information briefing. It doesn't say entertainment or function or festivity or event. It just says information briefing, of which, you know, we are allowed to go to the mainland because it's information helping us to become better legislators. Or is it because you believe information is such a fudge word that suddenly all of these things that are going to be gifts are going to be turning into information briefing, and they'll hand us big booklets of information? That's my question.
Well, so I think the confusion lies in what is an informational briefing, what is a presentation, what is a goodwill event. You know, the current law, and as it's been interpreted by the Ethics Commission, allows, you know, attendance at educational seminars from non-lobbying groups. That's clearly allowed under the current law and under administrative rules. I think where it gets more red flag is when you're accepting these sorts of things from lobbyists. And I think that this bill creates confusion because, you know, it's unclear, you know, what these sorts of events will be and how broad that exception will be from reporting.
What if we said information/educational briefings?
Yeah, I still don't think that it's necessary to create this sort of exception. You know, initially, it doesn't necessarily alter the gifts law itself. It only alters the reporting requirement. And then additionally, you know, bona fide educational seminars, for instance, from the National Conference of State Legislature, those are generally okay because those are not from lobbying entities. I think, you know, creating an exception for meals like this, you know, it verges on, you know, what happens if rather than a lobbyist giving you the, you know, the meal, what happens if it's a lobbying organization? It raises all sorts of questions that I think creates too broad of a window to avoid reporting.
I don't have a problem with continuing to fast at these functions, but remember, the big bucks are not in these rinky-dink, what would you call them, noodles and other things. It's where the super PACs and all the other big boys are playing rather on a place of immunity. And here we've got this, don't do anything that's got aloha in it because it's going to be in other words, I commend your specificity, but I think you missed some of the big picture in terms of really where money in politics is really money in politics. And this is a pretty Manini thing. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, you're welcome, Representative Moore. Anybody else? Representative Mizuno.
Thank you to the Ethics Commission. I think the genesis of this bill was because there was confusion on what we could or couldn't do. And a lot of the members were concerned because when we go to an event with our constituents, would have nothing to do with lobbying. It's just talking about constituent issues. We could not accept a $2 bento because it might look like we're asking for a favor by a gift. And so the confusion with that and talking to Daniel Gluck caused us to draft a bill like this. We want to continue to work with our constituency without having all these concerns about saying I can't take a bottle of water because that $1.50 bottle of water may look like we're going to focus only on your issues. It just didn't make sense for us. So I think that's the genesis, actually, if anything, to clear it up and make bright lines on what's acceptable and what's not. And if we would have just pivoted to Dan Mulway's old memo to say if it's $25 or less, we're not going to look at it, I think that would have been the solution. But it didn't come down to that. And so I think that's why we introduced this bill. We just want to, again, clearly show bright lines on what is acceptable, what's not.
And I understand your concerns, Representative, and our office is, you know, always happy to work with the legislators. We have attorneys who provide advice in advance of, you know, any acceptance of gifts. So we're happy to continue that. You know, the $2 bentos and that sort of thing is not the primary concern of the gifts law. And then I'd also add that on, you know, this bill doesn't necessarily fix that because this bill only amends the reporting requirement. So, you know, we're happy to continue dialogue to ensure that there's clarity about the gifts rules so that, everyone knows exactly what the rules are. And I think we can move forward and do that without this bill.
Right, thank you. I still think we need the bill because the $2 bento did come up as an issue when we talked to Daniel. And don't get me wrong, I think the world of Daniel Gluck. He's a great guy. He's worked with us numerous times to help us identify what is proper and what isn't. But again, that issue did come up with our constituents, with our members about the $2 bento. And so this is an issue. We need to know, can we accept or can we not? And also it's part of our culture. If we go to a town hall meeting with our constituents and our neighbors, and they want to give us a bottle of water or bento, again, there was no clear line, that could be looked at as accepting something that would be inappropriate and what could be cited for. So that's the issue. And yes, it does come down to the $2 bento, because that's one of the concerns that we had, that we were not able to clearly understand whether we could accept it or not. So that's one of the reasons for this measure. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to, thank you for being here, 656, I believe, Gary Cam, Campaign Spending Commission.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. The commission did submit testimony in opposition to this bill, and I'm not going to read it, but I just wanted to emphasize that if the committee excludes candidate advertisements from the definition of electioneering communications, then in the 2020 election, there were close to 1,300 statement of informations that were filed by candidate committees. So all of that will be gone in 2022 if the committee or the legislature decides to exempt candidate committee advertisements from the electioneering communication, definition of electioneering communication.
Thank you so much. Next up, Sandy Ma, Common Cause Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Common Cause also opposes HB 656. It does not serve transparency and accountability. You have our written testimony. I will not read it. Thank you. If you have any questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, individual Fina Bonoan, written in support. That's all we have with 656. Anybody in the Zoom room who wishes to testify? Seeing none, members' questions? Okay. Seeing none, let's move on to House Bill 660, a Campaign Spending Commission.
Chair, the commission stands on its written comments.
Thank you so much. Sandy Ma, Common Cause.
Good morning again. We had submitted written questions about this bill. We think that limiting micro-targeting could inadvertently impact small races in Hawaii and could drive up campaign costs for races. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we have late from Rose Feliciano. Actually, no, it's from the Internet Association. I apologize. Written in opposition. That's all we have on HB 660. Is there anybody else in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, questions are Rep. Ward?
Yes, thank you, sir. Maybe Sandy Ma or anyone who knows what technology is all about, or why micro-targeting as a technology is outlawed. You know, it's like going door to door. You specifically want to influence a particular person by going to their door, and micro-targeting, because we can do zip codes, we can do ethnicities, et cetera, or affiliations. I'm trying to see what's the empirical beef with what we're doing and what technology, Facebook, et cetera, allows us to do this. In other words, this is a question of understanding. Please enlighten me as to why this technology should be set aside. Does anyone have an answer is the question. If not, it's me or Sandy.
Thank you, Representative Ward. So what we've seen in recent elections through Facebook and certain social media is that you could take a person's social media history and their geographical information and their interests in what they've viewed in the past on social media and target ads to people and direct ads to those people based on their viewing patterns and their interests. And so, and that can be a concern for political advertisement. And so I think this is what this bill is driving at, and it's limiting micro-targeting of political ads. And so maybe that is not something that certain people would like. If you're limiting by geographical data, it could be a little bit tricky in Hawaii. That is our concern. We don't want to increase campaign spending costs and having people raise additional funds because our partial public financing of elections is limited here in Hawaii. So that is our concern. There's been raised First Amendment concerns in other areas, but micro-targeting of elections has raised concerns on the national level with races and people not getting the full spectrum of information to make informed decisions. And I will let other people on this Zoom answer further. Thank you.
Is anyone else going to respond? Otherwise, thank you, Sandy, for that. When you say you can take, we don't take any of it. All we do is pay Facebook or these other platforms. So when you say you can, it's not us that's doing it. We're just using a technology that's available. Therefore, if it's a, how would you say, if I'm selling used cars and I target you because you have an old jalopy, I should be out of the public. I should be controlling the private sector also because you cannot use micro-targeting and you know the year of my car. You traced all my social media and you saw I used to drive a 1990 Volvo. Are we kind of jumping over the line a little bit on this? Because that's the technology that's available to all the private sector. And you're saying, hey, you political guys, don't get involved. I'm trying to understand this in not just the micro way that you've got it, but in a macro, what it does to our campaign and what it does informing the people who, generally speaking, if they're a certain pro-business, you send pro-business information to them. And you're saying that's a foul. I don't get it. Having said that, no response.
Well, clearly the
Thank you, Chair.
testifiers have already weighed in. Real quick follow-up question though, Sandy. Micro-targeting, the data that's collected is usually, it's taken from people's history, often things that they do not want to be made public, or they try their best to, they have a right to know that their data is being collected in this way. Wouldn't you think that there's a privacy interest in the state trying to regulate micro-targeting as a force that's developed, even though it's within private? I know there's First Amendment concerns, but doesn't privacy protection concerns warrant a look by the state into micro-targeting in this area?
We submitted comments on this issue. We haven't looked at it completely in depth. And so this is the first time we've seen this bill, and we would like more opportunity to review this bill and see what other jurisdictions are doing. I know people are looking at it on a federal level. And so we like to see if there are any federal issues at play with micro-targeting of elections. I don't know if there's, like I said, federal issues at play. So I certainly understand, Chair, your concerns. But so we had just raised some comments about clear what we see that could increase costs. Like if you are in a council race on Kauai, should you have to expend money and not be geographically limited in that for your council race?
No, definitely a fascinating conversation. So appreciate you weighing in, and I'm sure we'll be discussing this one throughout the session as it raises a lot of issues, especially what's been going on with the mainland, and their issues with vote suppression and other things. Members, anything else? If not, we'll move on to the next bill on the agenda here, which I believe is 660. 816, sorry, bad eyes. 816, State Procurement Office.
Good morning. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony providing comments.
Thank you so much. Department of Ag.
Good morning, Chair. The department stands on its testimony, offering comments. Thank you.
Your comments on that and you being here. Brian Hallett, Department of Education. Okay, we have written with comments, and then finally a late from Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony. In support, we do note that we request that if this measure moves forward or if this program is implemented, that a force majeure provision is included As we all know, farming is a very unpredictable business. Today is a great example. We know farmers will be impacted by the weather, the wind, and the rain. We don't want them to be penalized for not being able to fulfill their contractual obligations due to unforeseeable circumstances, to include laws, natural disasters, pests, disease. So thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your testimony, your input on the bill. That's all we have for this measure. Is there anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, questions of the testifiers? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to House Bill 817, State Procurement Office.
The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony with comments.
Okay, thank you so much. Department of Ag.
Sorry. Good morning, Morisata. The department stands on its testimony supporting the intent and deferring to the State Procurement Office. Thank you.
Understand. Okay, great. Thank you for that. We have late from Randall Tanaka, High DOE.
Hello, Chair McKelvey, Vice Chair Wildberger, and members of the committee. We support the intent of House Bill 817 and stand by our testimony. Aloha.
Thank you so much for that. We have Micah Munakata, Ulupono.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Committee. Micah Munikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We support the intent of House Bill 817, offering a few suggested amendments for consideration by you, Chair, and just kind of dealing with some of the definitions that are attached to this bill and also the way in which it's measured. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And finally, late Brian Miyamoto, Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for the late testimony. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony supporting the intent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all we have on this one. Anybody else in the room for 817? If not, members, questions of the testifier? If not, we'll move on to 841. First off, State Procurement Office.
The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cheryl Park, OIP. We have comments on the measure. We have DAGS next, Accounting and General Services. They're opposed to it. Jay Butai, Director, Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Chair. We stand on our written testimony and support.
Okay, thank you, Director. Appreciate it. We have numerous individuals who've submitted written testimony in opposition, and that is all we have received on the measure so far. Is there anybody in the Zoom room who wishes to testify on 841?
Chair, it's Janice Marsters. Aloha from sunny Maui. I provided testimony, and I can also respond to any questions about ACEC's testimony. That's the American Council of Engineering Companies of Hawaii. We're in opposition of this bill. The statute already has a for consideration of cost if the agency so chooses. We find that most do not, because it in the selection of design services, there's often the agency will have a concept, but they're not quite sure how to get to where they want. That is that the design professional is selected on the basis of qualifications and then works with the agency to come up with the appropriate design. So it's very hard to cost for that up front. But given, in certain circumstances where it would be appropriate, the agency already has that ability in the statute. There is a provision for cost to be considered. We, of course, are concerned with the erosion of qualification-based selection, which is the national standard for the selection of AE firms, and want to make sure that good procurement practice continues to be followed. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else?
This is Daniel Chun.
No, sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
American Institute of Architects. And I'm standing on our written testimony, except I'd like to call attention to the last paragraph where we said this bill causes a huge change for the worse in the whole procurement process. And if you think about it, introduces so much uncertainty. We don't know how often it might be used, whether it be used for big contracts, small contracts, county contracts, might be used in hard times when agencies feel like they can get a cheap deal. So I'm just saying business does not thrive on uncertainty. And right now the existing system is a great uncertainty, certainty, sorry. And this would be really poor because we'd have a lot of uncertainty in the whole system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else on Zoom wishing to weigh in? If not, members' questions of the testifiers? Okay, if not, thank you. Next up is 844, State Procurement Office.
Good morning. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony, providing comments and recommendations.
Well, thank you for the comments. Next up, Jay Batai, Director, Department of Transportation.
Aloha, Chair. We stand on our testimony in support.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Kurt Odagura, DAGS, Department of Accounting and General Services. Written in opposition, and Susan Piccola Davis, an individual in support. That's all we have on this testimony. Anybody else at 844 in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members' questions of the testifier. Okay, seeing none, let's move on to 849. First up, State Procurement Office.
The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony, and we apologize for the typo in the second paragraph. With the bill number. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is Kurt Odagura, acting as an individual this time. Testimony in opposition. Susan Piccola Davis, another individual who supports the bill, and Dr. Jim Schoen, individual who supports the bill. That's all we have on 849. Is there anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members' questions of our testifiers? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 877. First up is again Mr. Odagura, this time as the head of DAGS. Written in support, Jay Butai, Department of Transportation.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair. We stand on our submitted written testimony in support.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We have Associated Builders and Contractors Hawaii chapter.
Good morning, Malcolm Barkarsi, Chair of Associated Builders and Contractors Hawaii. We stand on a written testimony in opposition and are available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Board of Water Supply.
Good morning, Chair. The Board of Water Supply stands on its written testimony in support of the bill.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you being here. Ryan Kobayashi, Laiuna Local 368. Written in opposition, Nathaniel Kinney is an individual. In opposition, Chris Deloney, Pacific Resource Partnership. Also in opposition. That's all we've received on this measure, both Zoom and written. Is there anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify on 877? Seeing none, members' questions. Seeing none, let's move on to 878, State Procurement Office.
Good morning again. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony providing comments, and would just like to add regarding the survey, we did send out the survey to all 48 registered vendors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Department of Accounting General Services in support, and Jan Govea, University of Hawaii in support. And then we have Kay Piltz, individual, written in support. That's all we received on 878. Members, is there anybody in the Zoom room wishing to testify on this bill? Seeing none, members, are there any questions of the testifiers? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to 424. First up, State Procurement Office. Okay,
Good morning. The State Procurement Office stands on its written testimony with comments.
Thank you, appreciate that. Scott Glenn, Hawaii State Energy Office.
Good morning, Chair. The Energy Office stands on its written testimony with support.
Okay, thank you so much. Michael Colin, Hawaiian Electric.
Good morning, Michael Colon with Hawaiian Electric. We're in support of HB 424, and just real briefly, we think that this is a fantastic bill because it provides an opportunity for the state to show leadership in clean transportation, but also it creates a unique opportunity to create a broader base of electric vehicle users who can provide insight and knowledge on what the major gaps in the market are as this nascent technology develops. And it also incentivizes rental vehicle fleet companies to provide EVs, which can lead to a larger stable of electric vehicles for rental, not only just for government, but also eventually for tourism. So we think there's a nice snowball effect that can result from this kind of leadership. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Ted Boland, Climate Protectors Coalition, written in support, and we have Steve Chang, Hawaiian Gas.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Hawaii Gas stands by our testimony, but I'd like to highlight just one point. Because technology evolves quickly and new options come to market, we request the definition of an onboard fuel cell is clarified to what is defined by the Department of Energy. Accordingly, we ask the committee to amend the definition of an electric vehicle on page 3, line 6, to read generated from an onboard fuel cell powered by hydrogen or other renewable fuel. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate your testimony on this. I believe that's all we have on 424. Is there anybody else in the Zoom room wishing to testify? Seeing none, members' questions.
Chair.
Yes, Rep. Warden.
Thank you, Chair. To any of the testifiers or in the Zoom room, what are the actual rental costs now of an electrical vehicle or of a normal vehicle compared to the cost that says it can go 25 to 50% more than that? What I'm trying to get at is what is the cost of government if it's going to increase? Does anyone know the actual numbers? If I went to the airport and I bought and I rented an electrical car, how much would I pay? Does anyone know?
You can look it up on Google.
Okay, but the point is we're passing a bill.
You can Google it up. There you go.
I'm trying to calculate how much this is going to increase the cost of government versus the good thing that is going to do what the bill says, and it's a good bill in that sense. But you know, right now we're a couple $1 billion in debt. I just want to see a measurement. Does anyone have that, or who's for this bill, or we leave it to it's going to increase the cost of government too much?
Rep. Ward?
Yes, madam.
I don't know if you guys can hear me. You'll remember, just reminder that you do not have to refuel this vehicle upon returning. You don't have to pay to fuel. So even if the rental cost happens to be more than a combustion engine, you're not required to purchase fuel upon return.
So for the taxpayers, for the renter, that is a good one, actually.
But
Good point.
taxpayers
But
too, because if you forget and you're in a rush, if you show up at the rental car terminal, you're going to pay their rate per gallon.
yeah, that's what I just want to know. What is the
10
rate?
times higher.
What's the rate for the electricity that goes to this baby?
Well, that's why
Anyways.
this is a good bill, and that's why we need to keep this discussion going, because
Well, it's a great
there's a lot
conversation.
of cost savings. I don't think you're able to really see.
General Motors says they are phasing out fossil fuel cars by
That's even more of a good
2040.
reason for us to start to look at this. So, but no, again, not all costs are upfront and apparent.
Yeah.
They're all savings.
Good, thank you.
Any other discussion on this measure? All right.
Chair?
Yes,
Yeah,
please, Representative Mizuno.
I understand the explanation or concerns or argument that Representative Ward had made, but I think it's a good bill, and I think it has a long ways to go. And so during that time, we can certainly do a cost comparison, but at the end of the day, it's great to support renewable energy. And so I think this bill is good.
No, it's a good bill. We have some mechanical things we need to discuss about, but that's why we want to get on the hearing notice and start the discussion.
Thank you.
All right, guys, anybody else? If not, we are going to recess for decision making. We'll be right back. back to Zoom. What we're going to do is remove some of the measures today, more of the technical fiscal housekeeping bills, and then the others that we need to work on, we're going to come back on Friday to DM on that. Let's just go through it real quick. House Bill 22 recommendation is a House Draft 1 with a defective date of 21/12. Tech amendments for further discussion. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 22 House Draft 1.
Recommendation of the chair to pass HB 22 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Representative Cullen.
Aye.
Representative Eli. Representative Ichiyama. Representative Mizuno.
Aye.
Representative Woodson.
Aye.
Representative Yamashita. Representative Ward. Mahalo, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. House Bill 140 recommendation is a House Draft 1. We're going to do tech amendments. We're going to blank out the calendar days and note in the committee report for the next committee to look at whether or not that might be too aggressive. And then a defective date of 21/12 for encouragement of further conversation. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, House Draft 1.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation to pass HB 140 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Are any members voting no or with reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. House Bill 141, a long way to go. So for right now, we're just going to put an effective date in the measure and continue the conversation on the judiciary. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 141, House Draft 1, Representative Ward.
Sure. How defective is defective?
21/12.
21/12.
Long time away in the title of a great Rush album. Okay. Next, all right. We good? Good. Okay. House Draft 1.
Recommendation of the Chair to pass HB 141 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye with seeing no reservations or no votes. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, everybody. 142, same story, same script, a defective date of 21/12, tech amendments if necessary, and moving on to judiciary so we can continue the conversation. Questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 142, House Draft 1.
Chair, your recommendation to move HB 142 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any noes or reservations from members? Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Okay, next one up, we have House Bill 145. Same script, same story. We want to continue this conversation. So tech amendments if necessary and a defective date of 21/12. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 145, House Draft 1.
Thanks, Chair. Recommendation to move HB 145 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any no or reservations from members? Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Okay, House Bill 157, kind of a bill that came up out of what happened on Maui. Was hoping the county council can weigh in on it. So given that we'd like to their kokua and input in judiciary, recommendation is a defective date and tech amendments and to continue the conversation on the judiciary. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 157, House Draft 1.
Chair's recommendation to move HB 157 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Any members voting with no or reservations? Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. 331, state plan. Great bill. Want to continue this conversation. Tech amendments. We're going to put a defective date of 21/12. In the committee report, we've been asked to put an appropriation in there, but that's not our kuleana. But in the committee report, we're going to ask the Committee on Finance to look if there's any possibility of end funds or federal funds that could be used to help this endeavor. Members, questions, comments? If not, Vice Chair, 331, House Draft 1.
Mahalo. Recommendation of the Chair to pass HB 331 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. If there are any no votes or reservations from committee members? Thank you, Chair. Your measure is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. On the following remaining bills, we want to do some conversations with the authors, entertain some possible amendments, and also not drown HMSO. So House Bill 365, 366, 376, 516, 526, 531, 645, 656, 616, 816, 817, 841, 844, 849, 877, 878, and 424 will be deferred, time certain, Friday, 10 a.m. for decision making.
Chair.
Yes.
With the rapidity, I didn't check to see, did you say also HB 660?
Let's see. Yeah, that's Friday.
So it's everything.
Everything, yeah.
Friday.
Everything from our last vote to the end of the agenda is deferred, time certain, 10 a.m. Friday, but I want to just read the bill numbers out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? If not, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you battling the storm alone.